In this workout, we're going to open the gates of the hands, and it tends to feel kind of similar to working in the head and the face compared to maybe some of the more difficult areas we've been working on lately, because the hands, we tend to have a lot of awareness and sensitivity. So first, let's just settle in. And whenever we're working on the lightness of the dissolving process, I always recommend that you balance that by first just getting a nice rooted feel through the body. So finding the feet, balancing the weight in the feet, and just giving yourself a minute or two to let gravity work on your structure and let the weight start to fall through your system. In the alignments of the lower body, you don't want to feel like the joints are jammed up at all. They have to have a spring to them so that the weight of the body falls through easily. Feel how the lower spine comes into the pelvis, and like the keystone of an arch, let the sacrum, let the base of the spine sort of be balanced between the structure of the right leg and the left leg. We'll get into this later in the process, but the pelvis has to have a feeling of opening and spreading. So even as you settle in, try to feel the tissue and the muscles of the pelvis relax open. That's going to be a major clearing, major gate that you'll sort of pass through just to get your basic alignments together. So the legs release out of the pelvis, the spine kind of drops its weight, especially the lower back, into the pelvis instead of getting jammed. And even have a sense for the head, the face, the brain, releasing down into the pelvis the same way. Again, just settling in for a minute or two. Good, and now lightly bringing awareness to the crown of the head. So in contrast to that sinking, dropping, releasing, just land the mind lightly on the crown. Feeling the energy of that point. And as the crown of the head opens, notice sort of what kind of focus and attention and awareness you're putting on it. To get it, it should be one of the easier places to open up in the body at this point. And do your best to bring that same type of awareness and intention to the other gates as we come down through the body. So now to the centers of the temples and the third eye. you start to notice stuff through these gates that you want to chase or follow or make you feel like you're fidgeting or squirming, without fighting yourself, do your best to just relax the mind into that one area and stay with it and notice how things begin to release and resolve. So let's drop down now to the eyes. Feeling the eyeball itself, but then the gate behind the eye as well, if you can. Now to the ears and the gates on the jaw. So as places we revisit become more comfortable, holding more of them in your mind at once should get a little easier. So when you feel your two ears and the four gates of the jaw, just try to get a sense, where do you put your awareness? How do you hold your mind to get all six of those gates into your awareness at once? And then from inside the mouth, the place where the tongue touches the roof of the mouth, and the whole channel that runs from the roof of the mouth through the throat, the gate of the throat notch, and down through your sternum. Feel that whole channel, that whole area at once. Now, look at the neck, so feel how the skull sits on the neck, and if you need to rotate the head slightly, letting the jaw go down, that should create a sense of light opening at the back of the neck through all the cervical vertebra, and just like lifting the skull slightly off the top. And I want you to just feel for the spaces through between the bones of the neck. Lightly letting those joint spaces open up and trying to release and dissolve any sense of holding. And don't rush going through the neck. Don't just feel the whole thing at once. It can help you get rid of a lot of kinks and bends and subtle holding if you really try to go piece by piece. Coming all the way down to the base of the neck. Now feel out to the shoulders. So here's another place where the gate at the top of the shoulder's nest, and the center of the shoulder blade. Try to feel those three simultaneously around the edges before you let your mind feel in through the armpit, then down. And as you begin to release the gate in the armpit and feel it deep inside the shoulder joint, one of the things you'll notice over time is that this helps the flow of energy from the spine down through the arms. So you're beginning to unlock the flow that's going to help us get all the way through the hands and the fingertips. So as you feel that begin to happen, now follow it down and feel into the elbows. So feel all around the elbow joints, those 11 or 10 minor gates around the joint, each surface above and below the joint, and on the two sides. Now feeling into the center of the elbow joint. And continue to sink down through the arms. Just feeling through the forearm until you come to the gates of the wrist. Feel all around the wrist and then into the center of the wrist joint. Now as you start to feel into the hand, we're going to do two different things. We want to dissolve the space between the bones of the palms, and then we want to find the gates in the center of every finger joint. So let's start out just feeling into the palm. Feel it, try to distinguish the long bones from the tissues around them. And begin to dissolve the space between the bones. So this can often lead you into a sense of the hands feeling wider through the palms and across the palms as you let them open up and become more aware of the space between the bones. And like the elbows and wrists, you might find a lot of residual tension in the hands that we typically just ignore. Now start feeling to the first set of knuckles, not out at the fingertips, but the ones that come out from the palm. We'll work from the palm out to the fingertips. So that whole first row on each finger and the thumb. And just watch for the tendency to sort of fidget and try to make physical adjustments. We want to be a little more subtle. We want to feel what's there physically, but then hold the mind in a way that a layer above or a layer behind the physicality, the energy that's binding, holding, or sort of encoding that physical state. That's what we want to address with the dissolving process. Now moving to the next set of knuckles out. Seeing if you can distinguish by feel. And slowly bringing your awareness into the center of each of those knuckles, each of those joints. And then to the third set. And just again, bringing as much awareness into that third set of knuckles for each of the 4 joints of the fingers on both hands. Now feeling to the tip of each finger and the thumb. And just have a sense that from the wrist, through the palm, through each of the joints of the fingers, just letting things release out through the fingertips. And eventually you'll be able to dissolve the space beyond the tips of the fingers as well. More than other body parts, you'll probably be able to feel out from your hands and out through your fingers, because we're used to doing that. When we reach for something or anticipate touching something, we naturally extend our awareness beyond. So in this process, it's just a question of using that same kind of intention, but holding the mind there, feeling the space, containing it, and starting to get a sense for the energy in that space. And dissolving is sort of letting that go quiet. So now with that established through the fingers, through the hands, out through past the tips of the fingers, come back into the torso and let the mind sink through you. So the whole rib cage, chest, shoulder blade area just gets this saturated feel, this heaviness. And you're just clearing out, letting gravity take over, and letting the sense of anything that's loose, released, whatever you're still sort of holding on to in the body, just have the gentle intention of letting it drop through you. So front, back, and sides, all one sort of sheet, one flow, one sense of dropping down through the ribs, down through the solar plexus, the diaphragm. Down through the belly, all the internal organs, the lower back, letting everything fall into the pelvis. Just like where we started. Letting the pelvis open, the tissue in the pelvis, a sense of holding through any of the joints, the muscles, the anus, genitals, whatever you can feel, just letting it release through the body, down through the legs. Without compressing the ankles, the knees, or the hips, letting the weight fall through the thighs. And down through the lower legs. We did all the fine focus, specific feeling, especially the precision in the gates in the hands and the fingers. And to finish your practice, you just want a general sense of release. Feel the areas of the body with big, broad brush strokes. Down through the ankles, down through the feet. But always just taking a little bit of time to feel the connection between the feet and the floor. Letting this get softer and softer over time. Yeah. Good job.